Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 6 recap in association with Quimbet. Week 6, that means we're a third of the way through the season already, which is nuts. And we're live across X, Facebook, YouTube, and on IrishNFLShow.com. Thank you, everyone listening back to the podcast. Also, at the time we're recording, we have two Monday Night Football games still to come. That's the Bills playing the Falcons and the Bears hosting the Commanders late tonight. Well, among the big talking points from the weekend that's just gone, however, the Patriots backed up their upset of the Bills by beating the Saints. The 49ers have further injury woe as they lost Fred Warner, and Cowboys' old boy Rico Dowdle comes back to haunt his old team, and he led the Panthers to another home win as Dave Canales cementing the good feeling in Carolina. Before we get to Sunday Night Football, which is where we wanted to start and talk about that Lions-Chiefs game, we got some news that's happened today in NFL world where the Titans, Brian, have fired your namesake, Brian Callahan. Just 4 wins he managed over 2 seasons. He was probably vying with Mike McDaniel as the person most likely to get fired, although Aaron Glenn might have been a late runner and rider along the rail after that performance over the weekend. But it is Brian Callahan who has the unfortunate distinction of being the first head coach to be relieved of his duties in this relatively young season.
Inevitable, Connor. I think even at this early stage of the season, having, in particular around the comments after the game, I don't know if any have taken time out to watch the press conferences that thereafter. I wouldn't say he threw Cam Ward under the bus, but essentially kind of referred to lack of preparation in games, which I found extraordinary for a rookie quarterback that would be, to go down that road. If anything, you should be utilizing your rookie quarterback as any reason to hold on to your job. Developing quarterback, he's the future. We're going to have a rough season, but there's positives to come, and we saw it last week, the comeback in Arizona, and but he then also went. Then the players got involved in the press conference, and I know they're all doing it in different components and different moments in time. But they all suggested the lack of preparation for the game was starting throughout the course of the week, and having come off a victory, in which people are kind of in a roundabout way excited to see a bit of Cam Moore kind of deliver last week, to a certain extent under the pressure, and come back to kind of put such a flat performance out last night against the Raiders team. With all due respect to Raiders fans, they're not like the fact that the Raiders can only put them away with a 20-10 victory kind of maybe signifies them where they're at. But the Titans were flat from the start. Their offensive line is a disaster. I'm looking at Cam Ward overcooked the ball time and time again. And you're wondering, is this Cam Ward that we all saw going at 1, or is it because he's feeling the strain of already working with a head coach? I think, this one didn't come as any surprise whatsoever. In fact, even if Mike McDaniel was to go today, I think that would be more surprising than this predicament. It's a shame for him because he's worked with some stellar quarterbacks over the years, Connor, including the likes of Peyton Manning, and he had the CV and the career. He'd done Joe Burrow, and it looked like he was the type of guy, a young and up and coming offensive coordinator that we've seen, such as the Jags this season. But it's not to be, and they've decided to move off quickly. The biggest question now is: are they going to go with an interim head coach for the season, or do they have someone lined up already?
You haven't mentioned the most significant reason behind Brian Callahan's failure as head coach was that you were heavy on the Titans at the start of last season. It all went wrong when you put the O'Leary pox on them.
But that's good because Brennan put the pox on them this season. Sorry, Shane Brennan's not here tonight, so I can fire it off to him now. He's gone with them this year.
I'd hold my hands up and say I've killed the Bengals for 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah. Well, look, that's because we had Will Levis last year. Connor, maybe they should have stuck with Will Levis. Will Levis, who's now on IR for the entirety of the season. So the controversy of a quarterback situation went away very quickly. I thought it was very telling last night that they were so flat after a winning performance last week. Didn't come as a surprise.
No, indeed not. Kieran, the Lions arrived in Arrowhead on the back of a 4-game winning streak, and a lot of us had picked them to continue that winning streak, even heading into the daunting arena, which is GEHA Field in Kansas City. But the Chiefs did what we've become so used to the Chiefs doing, even though we haven't really seen that version of the Chiefs for a while, and I won't say we slept on the Chiefs. It's not like we don't know what the Chiefs are capable of, but there's a little bit of a forgot about Dre here. You all know me, still the same OG. Mahomes is still Mahomes, and he was nearly perfect last night, and the Chiefs were nearly perfect. They put together a complete game, and when they play a complete game, even the Lions weren't able to deal with it.
Yeah, and if there's one thing I learned last night, is you can't say I told you so after 4 weeks in a season, because I'm scared of the Chiefs at the moment. I genuinely, what I saw last night, it was very much we haven't gone away. That kind of a vibe at the moment. There was glimpses of it against the Jags, even the way they opened the game against the Jags last week, and then the couple of moments got away from them, and we were able to be critical and say, well, they've lost a 1-score game, which wasn't happening to them last season. But there were glimpses of that, of that offensive prowess last week, and it's only building and building. And with Rashee Rice to come back now next week, you're just, if you don't want, and look, I don't mind saying it, you want change in this. You don't want to see the same history repeating itself over and over. If you don't want to see the Chiefs back in the AFC Championship game again for the 8th straight time, isn't it? You're very concerned at the moment, because who's better than now? Who's better than now in the AFC?
But Connor, sorry, quick one. The way he said that, I was waiting for it, is a bit like BBC back in the day. If you don't want to know today's football results,
turn away now. Yeah.
Look
away now and
look away now.
Look away now, indeed. You'd have to explain that to younger viewers who have the results basically hardwired into the microchips in their brains, like they're never off. But if you look at like what you just said there, is if you want the Chiefs back in the championship game, or if you want the Chiefs beaten, I want the best version of the Chiefs beaten, right? I think that would make for fireworks. Like, we've been critical of the Bills and the Ravens, and we'll get to the Ravens in a little bit for what they haven't been able to do in recent seasons. And one of the things I think that a lot of us took away from the Super Bowl was, well, the Eagles showed how you beat this Chiefs team. You just have to dominate them in all areas and have the most talented team in football. That's literally the only way to do it, because if you're anything less than your best when the Chiefs show up in the way that they can, it's just not going to be good enough. And I was reflecting on this morning, thinking of what's so irritating about, and I completely acknowledge, and again, we'll get to this, the catalogue of injuries that the Ravens have. They've been incredibly unfortunate. But even in the earlier games in this season, when we saw the Ravens go down and we saw the Ravens fail to deliver in big spots, the thing that irritates me about the Ravens in comparison to the Chiefs, and in fairness, most teams fall short of the Chiefs in this respect, is the Ravens are great when they are allowed to be great. The Chiefs are great when they are required to be great. And that's the difference between them and so many other teams. We've seen the Chiefs make mistakes. We see Patrick Mahomes make mistakes. We see themselves get themselves into difficulty and have to bail out the boat, both time and time again, in big regular season games and in the playoffs. We've also seen them find ways to solve their problems on the fly, find a way to get over a Patrick Mahomes injury. He's hobbling, scrambling with one ankle. He's firing a ball downfield with barely any time to do it to Tyreek Hill against the Niners in that famous Super Bowl win. They find the drive, they find the way. They go down the field in overtime, Brian. You and I were lucky enough to see it live in Allegiant Stadium. Mahomes scrambling for 2 first downs, 1 on 4th down. Whenever he doesn't make it, the whole game is over. Throw 7 passes, complete 7 passes, including the game winner in the end zone, game over. That's why we say that the Chiefs are inevitable, but they're not. And that's the thing. They can be floored. They can be punched to the canvas. It's how they get themselves back up again. And other teams just don't seem to have that resilience, don't seem to have that self-awareness. And we've seen the Ravens in particular look inside themselves way too often and come up empty. And the Chiefs just, they find ways all the time.
And you don't want to be too harsh on the, you don't want to be too down on the Chiefs for being as great as they are, but it's just natural. When you put yourself up on that pedestal, you're there to be shot at. And it's the same as the Patriots. The Patriots frustrated everybody because they just had that, they were able to find the way to get the win. Like, look across sport, look at the Limerick hurlers, look at the Dublin footballers, look at all these dominant teams and even sports personalities like Tiger, and so many more. You could rattle them off. They just almost irritate you because they're so incredible at just getting the job done in those clutch moments, in those clutch situations.
But Brian, I mean, you're smirking away there because you're probably thinking the great thing about the Patriots dynasty in particular was we did see them beaten at their best. The Giants managed to do it twice, and that's why those games are so memorable, because they beat peak Patriots. They beat peak Tom Brady Patriots. You want the Chiefs beaten at their peak. You don't want them to fall short because of injuries or because somebody catches them in a down season. You want the best to be beaten by the best at their best.
Yeah, and I know there's many Chiefs fan who would say they weren't at their peak when they lost those 2 Super Bowls to the Bucs and even to the Eagles last year, Connor, because offensive line injuries were something that people kind of brushed off going into the Super Bowl. And in particular, the last one, I felt it was brushed off the fact that the Eagles' front seven were so dominant and they get to Mahomes and that kind of narrative, oh, look, it's the Chiefs, they'll find a way. Mahomes always finds a way. But like, there is times where you can't overcome a number of injuries. And the Ravens fans will argue that's unfortunately the situation down which they're dealing with, but they don't seem to be able to manage the injury cycle throughout the course of the season compared to what the Chiefs and other teams can do. And then it will catch up on you because it caught up with the Chiefs last year. But we're now looking at, I think we're back to this dangerous Chiefs team because, and Kieran rightly called it, like they could have easily got out of Monday night's game with a victory. I think what came out last Monday night game was actually more about whether players are fully committed to the Chiefs regime, because Chris Jones, who's never been one for not showing a 100% commitment, it was a bit off-putting to look at the footage on Monday night, the way he kind of gave up on that final play. But they've obviously reacted very quickly to that weekend. And you look at the series of games coming up for them now, Connor. Don't want to get too far ahead, but like, they got Raiders this weekend and a few other games that are now very winnable.
They go Raiders. The Lions go Bucks. So these games become vital when you look at what follows them.
Yeah, and for the Broncos and the Chargers, who are both 4-2, who feel like, and we've all even suggested it in the preseason content, that this could be a year when we may see a parting of the ways in terms of the Chiefs actually winning the division. They might be just looking over their shoulder right now. Neither of them are playing well despite their 4-2 records, and say, okay, here we go, here come the big guns. And it feels just right now, it feels a little bit inevitable what's coming.
Yeah.
Would I call it?
If I'm the Chargers, I'm looking at that game they lost against your Giants and thinking, oh man, we really needed that.
They really needed it yesterday as well. I know we're going to come to that game. I thought they were very fortunate to get away with that one in the end as well. These teams kind of tend to balance themselves out. Are we having the conversation on refereeing decisions last night in Arrowhead? Now, I'm never one for getting into the zebras calling things against
Travis Kelce hopping the ball off the ground for the poxiest completed pass you'll see all season.
Yeah, well, and the Goff touchdown, which I thought was a fantastic play call but
even the players didn't seem to understand that call, and there was no flag on the play. Yeah,
there was
illegal procedure.
There was a Travis Kelce hold as well, where I saw a comment today that he was holding the player tighter than he ever held Taylor Swift for a good period of time, and that was a no call as well. So there was a few floating around last night. What
was strange, Connor, for me on that touchdown was because we don't tend to see a touchdown review to see whether it's a touchdown. Yeah, there's always every touchdown is reviewable, but it's reviewable to see if it's a touchdown. It's not reviewable to see whether they should have shown
flag in the lead up to it. Yeah, that's a totally.
Yeah. So essentially, that's what I can see Dan Campbell kind of saying, what the F, but he was saying, we've never had a game where a flag has been called upon.
So the Chiefs are back to their best. Their receiver core back in full, and all the referees are corruptly on their side, which is when they're at their best.
We're back. They're definitely back. So.
They're back, baby. Bucks Niners, Kieran. Talking about teams with injury woes. My God, we talked about what the Bucks have managed to do with their offensive line issues, with Mike Evans gone, with Bucky Irving out, and they were able to win a really good game against the Niners. But the Niners losing Fred Warner, that just to me feels like the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, the straws are all over the place. God love them in Santa Clara. They've been so unfortunate with injuries, but pound for pound, I think in the conversation is the best defensive player in the league gone. Yeah.
And that's their two best defensive players gone. I think for the season, I think you can say almost without a beyond doubt. Is it? I don't know if it's confirmed, but between himself and Bosa, that's how do you recover from that? And all you can do is
his foot was facing the wrong way. When gruesome injury.
How do you recover from that? And all you can do is give the Niners credit for being in the position that they are in. They're 4-2. They're still atop that division, but it's like holding the finger in the dam, isn't it? You just feel like it has to give at some point. Having said that, I mean they still got 142 yards out of Kendrick Bourne. They're still managing to get big performances out of players. I know Mac Jones threw 2 picks last night. I think that was probably the difference between the two teams. Oh, on the flip side, you have the Bucs, and they have their injury woes as well. And Ibuka could be a huge loss. I don't know how many weeks he's set to be out, but he went off with a hamstring. Again, they're another team that can only hold. They can only fight off this loss of receivers for so long. The only difference is it feels like the Bucs are due to get some players back quite soon. So it's not as, I don't think they're in panic mode or anything like that anywhere close to the 49ers. But again, you look at this game last night, and again, it just, I think it emboldens the call for Baker Mayfield as MVP. I think he's the front runner at the moment. I think he's I don't know if you could dispute it at the moment. Who's up there with him? That 3rd and 14 scramble was absolutely phenomenal. I was saying to Brian last night, it's exactly what you want from your leader on the field, and he's clutch every single week. He's come up with everything he's needed to do for the Bucks, and I've said it the last 2 or 3 weeks. I don't think I was as high enough on him and on them at the start of the season, and they're definitely gaining my support week on week.
Ryan, you were quite high on them. I was taking shots at you for getting behind the Titans last year and see where that ended up. But you were one of the few who was saying the Bucks are a sneaky Super Bowl contender. And like as Kieran said, I think if you're picking MVP now, and obviously you're not, and it's still quite early in the season, there's a lot of football to be played before we're making those calls, and let's see what happens. But if you're picking MVP now, I don't think you could argue with Baker. Like, you might have a conversation about Dak Prescott and possibly Sam Darnold, but Baker to me is head and shoulders above anyone. I mean, he's throwing beautiful balls, like the second touchdown pass to Egbuka last week was one of the best I've seen so far this season. Pass to Tez Johnson for that touch. Like, who's Tez Johnson? Makes a fantastic catch, in fairness to him. But Baker throws an unbelievable deep ball, and if there's nothing open, he's going to tuck it and scramble, and he's going to put his shoulder down, and he's going to do everything he can, fight and claw for yards, and guys will play for him. He makes players play up, which is what the best quarterbacks, the best leaders do.
Yeah, I can't see anywhere where he's MVP at the end of the season. Sorry. Just can't be happening. Just don't think it's the fashionable selection, Connor. The NFL, like the Josh Allens and the Lamars and Patrick Mahomes, and they'll have to be number 1 seed for him to get MVP. That's not saying he's not. That's not saying it's the right.
Bills lost to the Patriots last Monday night. The Ravens can't buy a win. Like, the conversation might be beyond both of them, the way things are going.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why. Just something in the back just says there's no way he's going to end up MVP. Not because he doesn't have a stellar season, not because the Bucks aren't riding high. Just something strikes me as he's not the kind of player the NFL will want winning MVP. Okay. Anyway, back to the scenario hand. Look, my concern now is, and I think are they going to fall into the 49ers model, which is in the sense of, can they continue to win games with the number of injuries? Like Egbuka, we've seen his odds for Quimby today spiral because he's, last week we were saying it's a foregone conclusion he's going to be Rookie of the Year. Now you can buy a lovely spread on odds on it, because to me that strikes me as they feel he's going to be gone for a couple of weeks, and that impacts on his opportunity to be Rookie of the Year. And right now they need to get the big players back, and there is a suggestion that Mike Evans could come back this weekend, which would be nice timing for him to come back. Whether he's going to be at the level that we've seen in the past, we'll obviously see in more detail come the big game against the Lions at the weekend. But the one thing you can see, and people even suggest that Todd Bowles isn't the greatest head coach, this team are playing for each other. They absolutely are 100% bought into what Bowles is delivering in the locker room before the games, both offensively and defensively. You can see even defensively once they're giving up scores, this kind of get to the tackle first, the second tackle coming in, is like everybody seems to be on the same page for this team. And we called it. I know we're tongue cheap, but we did call it that. If you looked at the NFC at the start of the season, it was realistically, we only felt there was 3 or 4 teams that could really challenge. Rams, 49ers, if they got it right in terms of injuries. Eagles, I'm missing one. The Lions, and okay, we spoke with the Packers, but we always felt the Bucks, if they could get it right. Bear in mind, divisional round 2 years ago, we feel they should have beaten the Commanders last year and got a shot at the Lions. They would have been ready and prepared to come for this season. They still are a sneaky pick. People will still write them off at this stage of the season, even though they're having such a successful start. Be interested to see how the Falcons go tonight, because they're going to chase them down.
You talk about Todd Bowles and the coaching staff, and it's a point well made, because one of the things that people don't traditionally associate with the Bucks or haven't historically is their ability to develop players. Like, all these rookies don't start performing for no good reason, and I think we're too quick to say, oh, he was a great pick, or that was a lucky pick. The good teams develop players. Kieran O'Donovan supports probably the team in the league that does it better than anyone, the Packers. They're not constantly luckily selecting good wide receivers in the 4th and 5th round. They bring guys in and they know how to coach them, and they know how to fit them into a system and get the most out of them. It's not by coincidence that the same teams select the best rookie classes every year. It's because they know what to do when they get them in the building, and the Bucks are clearly shown that they know what to do when they get players in the building. And to your point, like, I was already watching over the weekend. I mean, the Bengals are one team I put into this category, teams where players are making business decisions after 6 games. Like, there was a rushing touchdown that the Bengals conceded when Josh Jacobs went in, Kieran, and I saw two Bengals defensive backs just kind of half-heartedly standing at the end zone and basically waving him through. They weren't running to him when he broke through the defensive line. I thought there's two guys who are making business decisions here. They're not putting their bodies on the line because the season's already gone. That's not what you'll see out of Tampa Bay, and that's why they are where they are, and that's why the Bengals are where they are. Right, we'll take a quick break.
You know great odds, you're in control, you always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
Panthers won their second game straight, taking down the Cowboys on the back of curse of the old boy for the Cowboys, Rico Dowdle, who also provided us with, in a weekend of great press conference moments. Check out Aaron Glenn defending Justin Fields after the worst quarterback performance in living memory for most of us. Check out Mike Tomlin dissing reporters left and right. But Rico Dowdle had told the Cowboys they better buckle up because he was coming into town and he had a point to prove. Press conference, he's asked after the game what happened. They didn't buckle up. Rico Dowdle ran over the Cowboys, 183 rushing yards, 53 yards receiving as well. His second week dropping over 200 all-purpose scrimmage yards. Kieran O'Donovan, this is a guy that you didn't want to let out of your building. He looks like this year's Saquon.
Isn't it great when someone makes a call like that? It's like Babe Ruth calling his shot and just backs it up. It's so refreshing because he could have gone out yesterday, had an absolute stinker, and we wouldn't even be talking about him today. That'd be it. So fair play to him. You know, he obviously had that bit of a chip on his shoulder and had that confidence coming into the game after doing something similar last week. And hats off to him. And on the other side of the ball, we were full of praise for Javonte Williams last week, and they just didn't get going. I think they had about 31 yards total rushing, and that was the difference between the two teams. I mean, Dak had a really good game. Bryce Young, like Dak, you have to say Dak outplayed Bryce Young. You saw a lot of good out of Bryce Young last night, but it wasn't incredible. You saw Ted McMillan get two touchdowns. I think they were his first 2 touchdowns, but he's putting together a really good rookie season. But it was all about Dowdle. And now you've got a Carolina Panthers team who are showing, a good step towards progress from last year under Dave Canales, and you're kind of wondering, where can the Panthers season go? I mean, what are they 3-3 now after 6 weeks? I don't think they're going to get to the level of the Bucs. I don't think that division is strong enough to say that there's going to be a wild card in the South. But positive signs in Carolina, and a really, really good win last night against, okay, you could say that the Cowboys have their failings and just they cannot stop the run, and nothing has been solved with the Michael Parsons trade in that regard. But they're a high scoring offense, and you're going to have to score to beat them, and that's what they did last night.
But Brian, at the same time, the Cowboys are wasting a near MVP level start to the season by Dak Prescott, George Pickens, everything they could have wished he would be. 168 yards of a touchdown yesterday. Dak was completely clean. Okay, Javonte Williams, they couldn't run the rock yesterday, but what's killing them is, and you don't want to be wishing a guy out of a job, but Matt Eberflus has got to be one of the coordinators sailing close to the win right now because they can't stop anything.
Yeah, and Mike Florio's tagline, Stephen, was embarrassing. It's embarrassing in the sense of you are in a position where if you can just get one stop at the end of the game, you tend to get the ball and win the game. They allowed a 15-play drive, 71 yards, and it allowed them to run the clock off. It wasn't even like they got an opportunity to get the ball. It was such a sophisticated drive. How is Matt Eberflus going to survive? Because we're not even a year removed from when he lost his job as the head coach, and now he's in a position where he can't even manage a coordinator's role, unfortunately. Like, they just can't stop anyone. With the exception of the Jets last week, everybody else has gone for 350 plus on them. And it's must be hugely frustrating, as you touched on there, for Dak and Pickens. Like at the start of the season, when we spoke about Pickens, we were suggesting, will his head be switched on? Is this a kind of a brave move by the Cowboys to put him in alongside CeeDee Lamb? In a weird way, CeeDee Lamb's injury has really benefited George Pickens because we're seeing him now make that kind of leap to be a number one receiver. But like, they're scoring, and yet they're still finding a way to come out of these games on the wrong side of it. They came out the right side of that Giants game, easily could have lost that. And it's a frustrating time because me and Kieran talked about that 40-all tie, which is a rarity in the NFL after overtime. They could have won that game on a Sunday Night Football. and yet they could have easily lost in numerous games, and it's just hard to know what to expect. They're playing the Commanders this weekend. Yeah. Commanders can put points on the board, as you may know yourself. Tomorrow morning. But
you look at them and you think just all you need is an average caliber defense, and you could probably make the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
and if you can, it's nowhere near even that good.
Yeah, you look at most teams. You can look at the average score, average points they're giving up defensively, and even my Giants. Like you look, they're in their areas 22-24. Like if you can put an offense on the field that can put up 27, 30 points, by and large you're going to win. That's all they need right now. But stand to 27, and you'll get over them. But unfortunately, we're seeing them give up time and time again. It's difficult. It's a really difficult time for Cowboys fans because I'm sure they're clearly frustrated. They're clearly liking what they're seeing offensively. But they just know they're going to have to put up at least 40 to even get a tie rather than even a win at the moment.
Kieran, the Colts are a team that can definitely put up 30-plus points a week, as they did yet again at the weekend down the Cardinals. I was watching a bit of this at one stage on Red Zone, and the Colts actually went 3 and out and had to punt. And it was mentioned in commentary that this is only the 8th punt the Colts have had so far this season in their 6th game. And I was thinking, I'm pretty sure the Jets punted the ball 8 times in London in one game. This is a high-performing Colts offensive machine, and they needed every bit of it to beat the Cardinals, who were surprisingly feisty. Yet maybe Jacoby Brissett is the answer there.
Yeah, and I mentioned to Brian last night that on NFL Daily, I think when the line went out to something like 9 points with Kyler Murray absent. They were saying you need to jump on that now because they expected Jacoby Brissett that he would be able to move the ball, and he accounted for 320 yards last night. So I mean, he acquitted himself pretty well, and this was a different kind of win for the Colts last night. It wasn't leading from start to finish, hammering it home. It was a game that they had to be really good at the very end to win it. And it was Daniel Jones. I think Jonathan Taylor finished up with a decent tally of yards. He did go over 100, but there were times where the Cardinals were really stout in stopping him. So for a lot of the game, it did have to be Daniel Jones through the air. And, he started off the game so sharply with a great drive and a finish to Tyler Warren and threw a pick, but came back unfazed and, didn't get swallowed up by it. And he ran in his own touchdown in the next 5 minutes. So you talk about MVP candidates, the eye test at the moment says that Daniel Jones is up there in the top 5 as well. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks, definitely in the league through 6 weeks. I'm sorry to say it, Brian, but I look, everybody's waiting for this journey to end. And someone said
for those listening and not watching, you missed Brian flashing his "All Aboard the Darts" T-shirt, his Jackson Darts T-shirt, which is a thing of beauty.
There's a lot of people claiming that, okay, he mightn't be Derek Carr in that he mightn't collapse in the first few weeks, but he might very well be Sam Darnold and he might let you down in the playoffs this season. But I don't think it's fair to be waiting for him to collapse.
What I wouldn't give for a quarterback to let me down in the playoffs, at least in the playoffs.
Can I just jump in there while you mentioned Derek Carr, because that's bringing us right onto the latest news. In the last few minutes, Ian Rappaport has put out a post to say Derek Carr got a call from the Bengals last week. Said, would you have any Would you have any appetite for coming out of retirement? And he said, no.
Derek Carr.
I'd say Mark Sanchez is nearly getting a call from the Bengals at this point.
Go easy now, Connor.
Ryan Tannehill. Maybe Colin Kaepernick might get a call, will he? But no, look, the thing to remember about Daniel Jones as well is it's not all about him. He's got the best running back in football at the moment. He's got the hottest young tight end as well in Tyler Warren, and he
is unstoppable. Like talking about a guy who was exactly as advertised. He's unbelievable, and the way they deploy him in that offense, to be fair to Shane Steichen and give him his due, is just outrageous. Like they'll literally put him anywhere, and it's given teams fits. They just don't know how to defend him because he can do everything.
And I know, I think I go on about it maybe a bit too much, but I'm so high on the tight end position in football and what it does for a quarterback to be able to dump that ball off and to get a guy, 7-8 yards away who'll beat his man 50-50, who has that the perfect blend of strength and size and speed when needs be. A decent tight end can take you a long way as a quarterback. That's coming from a guy who's never thrown a football beyond 5 yards.
You need to. Hear the Shane Gillis routine about tight ends. He's a great routine about tight ends to give the big
Connor,
go. They got him.
He has the look of a Jeremy Shockey type of player, doesn't he? Even the hair, the way he plays, doesn't back off any tackle. He's going in for touchdowns at an early stage of his career. Everything he just. I wonder now what the Bears' thoughts process is in terms of Loveland over Warren. That was always the conversation back in the drafts. When Bears fans might be turning around in a couple of months' time saying, "Why did we not take Warren?" See.
And he was the more touted guy, wasn't he? Like, he was the higher projected.
That was Kieran Boyle's X Factor. Do you remember that, Connor? He threw his name out at a very early stage. Watch out for this guy.
Well, I will say that Ben Johnson was involved in the draft process that brought Sam Laporta to the Lions, and everybody said Laporta was the wrong pick to make in the first round. But that worked out pretty well. So I'm clutching at straws here now. Okay, Rams, Ravens. Speaking about teams clutching at straws, like Jesus, Kieran, like. The Ravens, Shane Brennan was saying a couple of weeks ago, if you're a Ravens fan, it might be time to start thinking about pressing the panic button. I think they're there now.
Yeah, another team that you get very good value on them winning the AFC North at the moment. But would you risk a 5 round at the moment?
I'd say if there's a 1-5 team that could make it to the playoffs, it probably is the Ravens. But it's taken a feat of imagination to get there from now. They get Lamar back this weekend, possibly, and that's a must because they just can't win without him. They can't do anything right now. No, and it's you used the word. I think I quoted you or paraphrased you last night. I think you like the phrase anemic. I mean, that's what it looks like at the moment. They cannot do anything. It's not that I like it, Kieran. It's just I'm so used to anemic offense. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, look, the one shining light last night, and I'm not sure how much of a shining light it is that Derrick Henry rushed for over 120. I think he had 122 yards. So nice to see him. A guy who you hate to see going through this kind of crisis of confidence or whatever it is, because he's an absolute Hall of Famer in my book. So look, you'd like to see the likes of him getting back on the horse and carrying this team. I mean, any team that has Derrick Henry in the offense, you would think needs only a mediocre receiving core to have a chance at winning games. But their defense, they can't stop a nosebleed at the moment, and it's looking like it's going from bad to worse for the Ravens. It's almost, I think we're 2-3 weeks away from writing it off as let's move on to next year.
Brian, the Rams are a curiosity on the other side because they're a team that you look at all the parts and they seem to fit. They're a team we talked about a lot in the offseason, particularly if Matthew Stafford was going to be fit, which he's a lot fitter than we thought he was going to be at the start of the season when there were real concerns over that back injury. Puka Nacua, of course, now a big injury concern for them after he injured his foot, although he did come back into the game late on yesterday. They've kicking issues. They have special teams issues in general. They're oddly flat at times when you think they're just about to start getting rolling, and it's not quite right.
No, it just seems to take long periods of the game before we see the level of production which we thought we'd see on this offense over the course of the season. I think Curry Williams isn't even playing at the level we saw like at times last year when they were, I wouldn't say struggling, but they were kind of getting over the hump. But he was always the stellar player that was, going above and beyond. He's having a quarter season as well. It's interesting, Matthew Stafford, because excuse me, there was talk of his injury leading up to the season, or after last season, and whether he would be coming back at the level in which we've seen in the past. He doesn't seem right. Defensively, they're not at the same level which we saw. I know we could throw away yesterday's game because it's against a Ravens team, with all due respect, with Cooper Rush, and they couldn't move the ball for large parts. So you probably have to write that one off. But I agree. Like the special teams thing is a real issue for me, Connor, because fine, they got away with it last night, but they had a blocked field goal last night. They had 2 blocked field goals against the Eagles in which they should have won. They had miscue after miscue on special teams last week against a 49 teams that were heavily depleted with injuries in terms of player availability. Yeah, found they couldn't come out the right side of that. Even towards the end, Sean McVay seemed to be questioning his own play calling. Just doesn't strike me as that Rams team that we all expected, that we were all lauding up.
And looking at those 2 losses, to your point, I mean, this team, never mind, could be 6-0. They should be 6-0. We've seen the Eagles now beaten 2 consecutive games in a row. Like they're not quite right, and they may build themselves into the season as they did last season, and we could see a very different version of the Eagles by the end of the year. The 49ers, as you say, were there to be taken with all the injuries that they had, but they let them off the hook. That's not what good teams do.
No, they just seem to. I thought we need a get right game. And that one we always say we need a get right game. People would argue last night's game was a get right game. I would challenge that and say it's not really, because everyone knew going into the game, like the 7.5 point spread with Quimbeck, you wouldn't necessarily get that if there was Lamar Jackson in situ there playing a quarterback. So you probably put that one down to that victory was always going to come. It's over the course of the next few weeks because the division is very much in the melting pot. I know we're going to come to the Seahawks and their fabulous road record, and they've found another victory, but right now you're looking at the Seahawks team and you're saying, for me, they look the favourites to win the division right now. The Rams don't. They're up and down. The 49ers are a great team in their own right, but they're heavily depleted, and can they overcome all these injuries? I'm not entirely sure they can. If they came up against a stellar team last night, came at the wrong side of it, because ultimately when they play these bigger teams, they won't be able to deal with the amount of injuries they have. It looks like it's Seahawks for the taking. But the Rams have this way, is also, Conor, which we saw last year, second half of the season, probably the latter stages going into December, where they go on this hot streak and then they find themselves in the playoffs. And it looked that way last year as well. So I wouldn't necessarily be writing them off, but it doesn't feel right now. I thought this team would be really up there this year. I think the NFC is wide open.
No, and it's a good point about them, because we make a lot, and we've spoken about it many times on the show before. Their Super Bowl season, they didn't win a game in the whole of November without winning a game, and then came roaring down the stretch. So they have form. Team that does have form at the moment is the Seahawks that Brian just mentioned, Kieran, who got it done again against a Jags team coming off 2 great wins, who really just kind of limped into that game and were quite disappointing. But the Seahawks, let's give them all the credit here. They're playing at a really high level. You're not getting much MVP hype around Sam Darnold, but he's as reliable, and I don't mean that to be damning him with faint praise. He's as reliable and consistent a quarterback as you're seeing in the NFL right now. You just trust him, and he's getting it done.
Yeah, he's playing like a top-level quarterback. He had 295 yards, 16 for 27, 2 touchdowns. And the big question about, more so actually than the question about whether Sam Darnold could produce was, could Jackson Smith and Jigba be a true number 1 receiver with DK Metcalf heading to Pittsburgh? And last night, maybe it might have been his best kind of his coming out party, because that ball over the top 60, I think it was a 61-yard touchdown or something. That was just a pure one-on-one beat your man. Darnold trusted him to run that route and just sent the ball along, and that's what you want from a true wide receiver. That's what you get from your Jamar Chase and your Justin Jefferson, and it gives the quarterback all the confidence in the world that every now and again he can just sling it down the field, and that's what he did. Look, I said it last night as well. I spoke to Michael Sean Dugar a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how good the run game can be for Seattle, and even Jordan Rodriguez was talking about it again. They're so confident that it will develop, and it is coming, and you just wonder how good can this what is the ceiling for the Seahawks team, because they're really putting together a sneakily good run. I think they're one of these teams that I don't think they're going to necessarily catch anyone on the hop, because I think there's high praise for them around the league, but I think they could find themselves sneaking into that top tier of teams that could be dangerous. And I know just to go back to
you don't want to face a team of road warriors that doesn't know what defeat feels like away from their own stadium. And isn't it amazing how the script has flipped for the Seahawks? When we used to talk about the 12s and we used to talk about the high decibel and how nobody wanted to go to Lumen Field, it's such an intimidating place. I think they're, what are they, 8-4 at Lumen Field. Actually, I don't even know if McDonald has a winning record there. I think I might be wrong.
It's really vanilla anyway.
It's about 500, if not maybe slightly behind 500, and yet they're 9-1 on the road.
Yeah, 8-0 as well, which is unbelievable. In the last 8, I think they're on an 8-game winning streak. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get sidetracked, and apologies for going off topic for a second, but just thinking of Darnold, okay, and I meant to make this point at the start of the show. When you look at Sam Darnold and what he accomplished last year in terms of resurrecting his career and following that through to Seattle this year, when you look at Baker Mayfield, you look at Daniel Jones, all right, there's a lot of talk, and even Daniel Jones threw a bit of shade at the Giants in the last couple of days. I think when he talked about it taking him going to the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell to see what true preparation really means, and he really thought that I think the professionalism and the preparation went up a level. You look at how Baker Mayfield and both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold look back on their time at Carolina, and with very little fondness, and a lot of these highly touted quarterbacks can really fall by the wayside depending on what organization they end up in. And it it just kind of re-emphasized the importance now of the Titans making a good decision in terms of bringing in the right person and trying to establish a proper culture for Cam Ward. Because if Cam Ward goes out and has a miserable season because of a lack of stability in the club next season, he's going to be labelled, all throughout the media as a bust, and he may end up floating through the league and falling further and further back, and we may never get to see his true potential. And I think these guys, Jones now, Darnold and Baker, they're lucky, and we're lucky that we get to see them at their best, because it's a tough league, and fellas can become very insignificant very quickly.
I'll tell you who looks like becoming very insignificant very quickly is Justin Fields after that game in London at the weekend. Just a horrific outing for him. You feel for him on one level, and on another level, brutal. Alan Brown says that Broncos game, in quotes, has set me back years. Never mind the NFL. Worst game ever. Yeah, I'm just so glad that game ended up in London and not in Dublin, selfishly. And we did get a good game between the Steelers and the Vikings, and a great occasion. Corey down on the Jets as well. Dara says Brian still hating on Baker 7 years ago. He said Baker wouldn't get the MVP, but he said that was more of a league thing than a Baker thing. So
I used to be very. There was suggestions a few years back the Giants would move in on Baker. It wasn't for me. Another one I want to share. I shared it to Barry Adams. Barry's always keeping in contact, and he's a very good friend of the show as well. So he gets an opportunity to listen in live. Stephen, he's usually listening back on the podcast. And Rory's delighted to see the Steelers doing well. AFC Challenger. Yeah, okay. Yeah, didn't think that'd be coming from a Chiefs fan, but there you go, Connor. See, even the Steelers are getting love on a Monday night.
Well, they're on a collision course in the playoffs. That could be an interesting one. Steelers Chiefs. Chargers Dolphins was another interesting one. Mike McDaniel, Kieran safe for another week at least. Maybe Brian Callahan departure will increase the heat on him now that firing season has commenced. But it just is such a bad look when your quarterback turns up in the post-match press conference and starts talking about how players aren't turning up to players-only meetings and people are skipping meetings. There's been comments out of anonymous former players in the past week saying that, the culture in Miami, even when they were winning, was that players were just being given passes for skipping workouts, skipping meetings. It's all piling the pressure on McDaniel, and it's not helped when you had a chance to win yet another game and let it slip against the Chargers team, who are misfiring, but did manage to come away with the W.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel is the new Barry Switzer, I'd say, by the looks of it. His attitude towards disciplining his players, but. Yeah, and this is the one. This is a game.
I will not hear a word said against Barry Switzer after that Cowboys documentary. Brought tears to my eyes. A lovely man and a great football man.
Absolutely, but it was a strange game because again the Dolphins couldn't get out of their own way, and they missed an opportunity to get a win against the Chargers team that has their own problems at the moment. And we talked about the Chargers charging. I thought it really looked towards the end that they had found a way to lose the game. And the only thing I will say is I'd give them credit. They did find a way to win. And when Justin Herbert needed to have it, they did put a good drive together to get that go ahead field goal. Lad McConkey is an excellent receiver. He's the high point for the Chargers at the moment. You're giggling there like. What have you something to say, Connor, about Lad McConkey, or are you okay?
No, I'll let it pass. I'm better than that. I may not be better than that in the WhatsApp group, but I'm better than making bad lad puns.
That's all right.
You can fill in the blanks yourselves.
Yeah, the Chargers they gave a turnover straight back. With a catch and fumble to Gadsden, and that was punished by a 49-yard touchdown at the start, and that kind of set the tone for a game that was going to be a struggle for the Chargers all the way through. And you can't really say that they acquitted themselves excellently. They didn't give me any more confidence to say that they were back to the heights that I was predicting them to be at the start of the season. But it's just a matter of them keeping afloat and look, as you said, looking over their shoulder and trying to stay ahead of the Chiefs and hoping that they can get some of their players back, hoping that they can get Joe Alt back. I think Mekhi Becton he played last night, but just getting him back to form. And what's his name? The third string running back actually had a fantastic game. I slipped him into my fantasy team last night, and I was very grateful for him because I had O'Marion Hampton, and yeah, he had a fantastic game. So look, maybe they found a star in him. But I think looking at it last night, I think they were going to be under pressure with the way the Chiefs are coming. And to be fair to the Broncos, if there's a positive from that game in London, it's just that absolute suffocating defense. I mean, how many sacks did they? Was it 7 sacks?
9.
It was a 9. Sorry. And
Hmm.
Nick Benito is absolutely dominating at the moment. So, I know we keep talking about the AFC West, but it's still a really interesting division for me.
But I mean, how explosive is that Chargers-Chiefs rematch going to be? Because the Chargers, of course, have the head-to-head right now after winning in Sao Paulo. So that game's going to mean everything in that division, and it's going to be absolutely crazy.
Conor, you're talking about great games. I actually think the Sunday's game is really, really enticing. The Chargers are hosting the Colts. The Colts go back to SoFi, having lost to the Rams a couple of weeks ago. The 9 o'clock game. I think it's a really nice one to look forward to the weekend.
No, it is indeed. And lots more to look forward to over the weekend and indeed over the course of the week. Don't forget to check out our live show on Thursday when we'll be previewing all of the Week 7 action. We will, of course, have a TNF Thursday Night Football preview out on that morning as well. Recording Wednesday, out on Thursday morning for you.
Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. QuinnBet, we bet